My mother said, giving birth to me ruined her life. I made sure she was right. So I was 32 when my mother dropped that bomb on me at my birthday dinner. My husband Carl and I were celebrating at my parents' house with my brother Doug and his family when my mom had too much wine and started her usual complaints. She was going on about how she could have been a famous artist if she hadn't had kids so young. Doug made some joke about her blaming us for everything, and she turned to me and said, giving birth to me was the worst day of her life because that's when her dreams officially died. Everyone went quiet and my dad tried to change the subject, but she kept going. Said she was in labor for 36 hours with me and knew the whole time she was making a mistake. Said looking at my face for the first time made her realize she'd thrown away her entire future for nothing. Carl wanted to leave immediately, but I sat there and let her continue. She said Doug was at least planned, but I was the accident that destroyed any chance of her going back to school or traveling or having a real career. My dad told her to stop, but she said she was just being honest and I was old enough to handle the truth. That's when she mentioned she'd actually scheduled an abortion, but my dad convinced her to keep me, and she'd regretted it every day since. My brother's wife took their kids out of the room while my mother listed every opportunity she'd missed because I existed. The art residency in France when I was 2 that she couldn't take, the gallery show when I was 5 that she missed because I had chicken pox, the teaching position at the university when I was 10 that required evening classes she couldn't do because of me. She ended her rant by saying she hoped I never had kids so I wouldn't ruin my life like she ruined hers. I stood up, said happy birthday to myself, and left with Carl. She called the next day like nothing happened, asked if we were still coming to Easter dinner and could we bring that potato dish she liked. I said sure, everything was fine. Started being extra sweet to her actually. Called more often, visited every week, brought her little gifts. She thought I'd forgiven her and started treating me like her personal therapist. Would call crying about how unfulfilled she was and how she deserved better. I just listened and took notes. 3 months later, she mentioned wanting to apply for this prestigious artist retreat for seniors. Said it was her last chance to make something of herself. The application required recommendation letters from family members about how art had impacted her life. She asked me and Doug to write them. Doug wrote his immediately about how she'd inspired creativity in our household. I said I'd work on mine. Instead, I wrote a detailed letter to the retreat committee about how my mother had publicly announced that having children ruined her artistic ambitions. Included the exact quotes from my birthday dinner. Explained how she'd spent 32 years telling people her kids destroyed her dreams. Said it seemed inappropriate to reward someone who viewed motherhood as the death of creativity. They rejected her application. She was devastated but assumed it was just competitive. Then I started my real plan. Found out my mother had been lying about her artistic background our entire lives. She'd never been accepted to art school in France. Never had a gallery interested in her work. The university position was entry-level admin, not teaching. She was just a mediocre painter who blamed her kids for her lack of talent. I reached out to her old college roommate Frances, who confirmed my mother was failing art classes before she even got pregnant with me. Her professor told her to consider a different major because she lacked basic skills. Frances still had the letter the professor wrote suggesting my mother pursue something more suited to her abilities. I also found her college transcripts showing she was on academic probation before I was even conceived. But the best discovery was her old diary from college that Frances had kept. Pages and pages about how she was going to trap my father into marriage by getting pregnant because his family had money and she didn't want to work. An entry from a week before I was conceived talking about stopping her birth control without telling him. She literally planned to baby trap him and then spent 32 years blaming me for it. I compiled everything into a neat folder and gave it to my father for their anniversary. He read every page while she sat there trying to explain. He asked her point blank if she trapped him and she admitted it, but said she did it out of love. He moved out that night, filed for divorce the next week. In the divorce, she had to get a job for the first time in 35 years because alimony wasn't enough to maintain her lifestyle. She works at a frame shop now, surrounding herself with other people's art. Doug doesn't speak to her after learning about the baby trap. She calls sometimes crying about how we've abandoned her after everything she sacrificed. I remind her that according to her, our births ruined her life anyway, so she should be happy we're gone. Turns out she was right about one thing though. Having me was the worst day of her life. Just took 32 years to make it true.